You're not really supposed to have two theses for a project, right? But I have two for today's video, and I swear they're not too unreasonable. One is, why did I stop drawing what I love? And two is, character designs inspired by nature. So, hi, hello. If you're new here, my name is Rain. If you're not new here, welcome back. I really appreciate you stopping on by to my little corner of the internet. I am a traditional digital multimedia, mixed media character designer and illustrator who's having an identity crisis. And I hope that you sit down and enjoy the roller coaster that is starting this illustration for me. So get cozy snacks, beverages. We're gonna yap, we're gonna talk. We're gonna talk about taking our time with art, drawing what you love, all the shebang. So get cozy. If you want to get creative with me, feel free to tell me all about it in the comments down below. But other than that, let's just get yapping about this drawing and what it was supposed to be versus what it is. I am so bad at reminding y'all that if you like this video at any point, hype it, like it. If you hate me, also dislike it. Subscribe if you want to see like more of my content at any point during this video. You're like, wow, this girl's yapping is like a vibe. Subscribe, because I do this every Saturday. So, just like, I don't know, do the Youtubey things if you like me. Or if you hate me, you could do the negative Youtubey things. Let's get into the fun shebang. Now that I reminded you that you can do that if you want. Justify your gray morality, if not outright, you suck attitude. But I really like Malenia's character design, particularly her second phase. So this was originally supposed to be Scarlet Rot Malenia fan art, and it became Poison Ivy? Question mark? I don't know what happened. Scarlet Rot is something as a concept that I really, really genuinely love. I love a poisonous, kind of toxic, plant-looking sludge vibe, okay? Like, as a thing, it is so me. I love it so much as a concept. And so I have been kind of wanting to do blank inspired characters where blank would be like a disease, an illness, something toxic, a chemical, or something like that. And yeah, a little cheaty to start with Scarlet Rot, but I've been like thinking about it for a while. I thought it'd be super fun, especially like turning video game ailments into character designs. Kind of weird, but kind of fun. And I've just been kind of thinking about it for a minute now, and I was like, Malenia's like a really good first step. I love her. I've been wanting to do fan art of her. She's gorgeous. I was planning on doing just a black and white illustration and then coloring her red, maybe some very soft gradients, but not going over the top, not a fully like deeply rendered semi-realism, not the hyper pop stuff I usually do. I'm talking 3 colors maybe, because I've been kind of missing that recently, missing it in my work, missing it in my life. I was like, oh, this is just the perfect illustration for it, okay? Black and white, really line art intensive, and then just using the color for a bold, nice pop. And then I added a tree, and then I just kept going in the wrong direction. And is that a bad thing? No, because I could still make Malenia fan art. And I kind of just let the drawing decide what it wanted to be. And while I was working on it, working on my sketches, my sketch, and then my sketch over that sketch, and then my actual line art sketch, I was kind of thinking about how I haven't just let art happen in a really long time, and how I feel like somewhere along the way over the last year, maybe a little less than, I have lost sight of myself as an artist in the sense that I have been really struggling to draw what I love. I love making my comic. I love working on my graphic novel, right? I love the content, the lore. However, I don't work on it as much as I want to, as much as I should be, and everything else I make around it feels like I'm slogging forward with no real objective and no real passion. And sitting down and just letting an illustration happen, letting the drawing just take whatever form it wanted, it made me really reflect on the fact that I have been detached from myself and my values and my joy as an artist for a really long time now. And I don't know where I lost sight of what brings me joy as an artist, but I'm realizing that somewhere I started trying to create for the sake of something that wasn't just my own pure joy. And I want to talk about that. I want to talk about how losing your passion as an artist isn't something that you necessarily notice until it's happened, until you're there. But also how this was a very just pleasant experience, and how I'm very satisfied with this illustration so far. Not finished. When do I finish anything in 1 week? But also taking your time as an artist, because I'm really slow, y'all. And I feel like it's important to accept that it's okay to be slow, and especially when it comes to making what you want. Also, my assistant William is incredibly angry that I'm not giving her my coffee, so that's what that sound is if you can hear it. I skipped over recording the secondary sketch process because it was really just taking the first fugly initial sketch and then making it something that could be kind of lined over. I didn't really follow it super closely when it came to the body, the kind of like bark leg plating and stuff like that, or the hair. The hair's a whole different thing. We'll talk about it later. I have plans for it. It's not gonna look super right at the end of the video. It's because I know how I plan to render it, and I have a vision, okay? I swear. But I skipped over that because it just felt kind of unnecessary. Felt like at that point, just watch a live stream, not me kind of energy. And so at this point, I have pulled up photos on my phone, and I'm looking at pictures of just the area I live, some photos I've taken as references for my graphic novel, and things of that nature. That's weirdly worded because I'm talking about nature. Sorry. I'm kind of looking at them, and I'm letting them kind of like dictate the overall feeling. I'm not looking at the image and utilizing it as a reference in the sense that I want the tree from this photo, I want this pose from this, that, and the other. Instead, it's just like, how does this picture kind of make me feel? That's what I kind of want to start to evoke in the overall line art, but also what I want to emphasize as I go forward with defining the things I want to keep permanently in the illustration. That's why I did incorporate some flowers. I do plan to incorporate more, once again in the rendering phase instead of in the line art phase, because the line art for me, traditionally or digitally, is kind of the coloring book phase. It's where the flats, it's where the primary rendering, and it's where the most important components of the illustration come into play. It is my focal point. Everything else is kind of more rendering phase for me. And I like to think of it as like optional, but necessary. I don't know. It's like the background behind where the trees are, that's gonna need to have something there. But I don't want to line it because I don't want it to have too much detail and too much of a focal point in the finished illustration. I might sketch it out once everything else is lined, and flat colors and largely rendered, and then kind of color over that sketch or have a temporary line art just so that I can get my ideas down and looking good. But I don't want it to be fully lined because I don't want it to have as much value as the rest of the piece. And so for little things like flowers I want to incorporate here and there on the trees and stuff, I want to save that for the rendering phase so that I'm not putting as much value and work into things that aren't the primary character and the things that are relevant to their design and their kind of existence in the space. The tree's important, that's what they're leaning against, that's the kind of quote mid-ground, even though it's like right behind her, that we need to have enough detail in to not look out of place. Everything else kind of around that can be more out of focus, less detailed, and deemed less valuable because it's just tying together the vibe, but it is not necessarily indicative of what a viewer wants to be looking at, right? So generally, I'm trying not to think and worry about all sorts of flowers. That can be done in the rendering phase and felt out then. For now, it's just her and that damn tree. But feelings, vibes, we're trying to kind of work our way through figuring out exactly how I want her to, I guess, feel within the space. Because it was originally Malenia, I wanted it to feel somber but homicidal. Now, I feel like it's still maybe somber and homicidal, but a little less so. And I wanted it to feel more neutral. Like, not intentionally violent, but like, you've entered my space and I don't really dig you here type of feelings, I guess. And so that's what I really wanted to try and settle in. I didn't want it to feel overwhelmingly aggressive or intense. I wanted her to feel passive enough that it can still have some softness to it in the rendering phase. I didn't have to use harsh colors to bring it out. I'm saying that like I've rendered it yet. I haven't. I just got my flats done this week. And I'm not entirely sure where we're gonna go from here in terms of color palette, but I have some good plans. Overall, I wanted her to just kind of feel existent, but I didn't want it to feel voyeuristic. A lot of art history pieces, including women, especially women in nature, there's a voyeuristic quality to it. They're not looking at you. They're looking away from you. They're looking at the water, the trees, off in the distance, at somebody else as they're peeping through something. And you're a voyeur. You're there as the viewer, looking in on a sacred or sometimes very vulnerable moment. And oftentimes that is because that is when, quote, women are the most desirable, unquote, when they're vulnerable and exposed and defenseless, historically speaking. And so a lot of moments with women in nature are voyeuristic. They're unaware of us peeping in on them. And I don't like that a whole lot. I don't like feeling like you're walking in on a sacred moment and catching it if it is an illustration that's not intended to be erotic. I don't like putting the characters in my illustrations in a scenario in which we are witnessing them at a lowest and it feels like we're actually there in the piece, right? Comics, you're showing the vulnerability of a character for the progression of a narrative, and there's multiple panels. We're experiencing that in a different way than if it's a massive painting on a gallery wall, right? And while this never will be a massive painting on a gallery wall, I wanted her to stay looking at us when I did change my mind from Malenia Fanart to something just inspired by nature and kind of just carrying the feelings of the area I kind of live in, right? I wanted her to stay looking at us because I did consider redoing everything, turning her away, having her more complacent in the space, but I wanted her to continue to feel intentionally there and aware of us. I like the opportunity for direct eye contact because we're not able to exist in this space without her acknowledgement. And I like that, yes, also, yes, because a lot of historical art pieces, women aren't acknowledging us and we're voyeurs, but also because I feel like we have done nature so wrong for so long that anything that naturally inhabits it has a right to be wary of us. And they should be wary of us because we have time and time again destroyed their spaces and disrupted kind of nature's balance. And so the piece is, yes, mostly about the character existing, but also I like the idea of her being a guardian of the woods. I like the idea that we have to be worthy of her passage for her to let us go past. And we don't know where we're at in that story yet. We don't know if she's going to let us through, let us go by, or if we will be denied entrance into this forest or denied passage the rest of the way, which is a little bit hard to tell in this point of the sketch because everything past the trees is not undecided. I have general ideas. I have photos from my property, from walks I've taken that I'm going to use to heavily kind of inspire it. But because it's not actually set in stone, it's hard to know what's beyond her. And I kind of like that as well. I might do a variation of the piece where she's just on a black background like this tree and her and see how I feel about it, or try different colors just to see if there's something beyond actually doing a fully rendered piece that feels good or right. I don't know. I'll figure it out. I'll definitely play around with background options. Maybe I'll do some like cosmic swirls. I don't know. Have some fun with it beyond the tree. But for sure there's going to be a forest back there. It's just not set in stone and kind of fully decided exactly what it's going to look like. But I like these forest guardians, and the more I spend in nature and the more I kind of try and re-embrace the aspects of the outside world that I have been kind of denying myself due to the cold weather, I find that I want to make more and more pieces just sitting outside. And it might be a cute series, I don't know. But I kind of want to just start doing my thumbnails outside in nature and then bringing that indoors and deciding the piece based on whatever comes to mind while I'm doing my outdoor sketches, and kind of see where that takes me artistically, because I got my undergraduate degree in botany. I clearly love plants. I clearly love nature. It's my thing, right? And I just haven't been doing it as much recently. I think I probably need to go back to my lichen drawing series, or just doing ink illustrations of plants from time to time to kind of reinvigorate that process. But letting the space, letting the outdoors decide the vibe, the feeling, and I might even take my color palette just from a photo outside when it comes to the actual rendering process and making all of those decisions. I'm not entirely sure because I don't want it to be too neutral, and I do still love a pop of color, and I'm thinking a limited color palette, but I might completely pull my palette from outdoors, just take a picture and just let that decide my colors for the piece, because there's no better color palette than the color palettes of like the natural world, right? Like, nothing is going to be more harmonious than what you get from just going outside, right? Like, that is what we historically draw our inspiration from. Like, that is the world, right? That is what inspired us when we had nothing else, right? And so you can't really go wrong doing that. So I'm thinking that that might be the like color palette as well. Just let it be the whole shebang for everything, and I'm kind of excited about it. I think it's super cute. But I think it's time we yap about the like drawing what you love part. The whole like I really need to take care of my artistic mental health and like my creative bone kind of vibes real quick. A long time ago on my channel, I talked about how the reason I will never be a full-time illustrator, like character designer, and just like relying on a small shop or anything, is because I know that I don't have the mental fortitude to have my income rely solely on other people's interest in my creative work. I don't have it in me to let other people's interest in my art be the sole form of my survival, especially as a disabled person who has to likely retire early from their full-time work and needs to have a good retirement set up. I just don't have the fortitude for that type of life. While it would be amazing, I am very slow and I take a really long time to finish a lot of my pieces, but also because I know that I am susceptible to changing my art to adhere to what other people want and then diving into creative burnout completely headfirst. Just, well, I hate everything now. Shit, what are we gonna do about it? And I've been kind of in a situation where I already will finish a piece and I look at it and I'm like, I can do better. I'm not kind of producing to a standard that I know that I am capable of. And I have been struggling with that issue where I don't feel like I'm making work that is of a quality that I should be, and feeling negatively about how my work is turning out, right? And I don't really know how to fix that issue, right? All I know is that when you are in a creative rut like this, you have to push forward, right? You will come back around to liking your finished outputs again one day. Maybe you'll look back at them 2 weeks later and that will be it. You just need distance and time from it. But I have been struggling with this feeling for so long recently that I've kind of already started to stop creating what I love to create. And it's been creating this issue for me where I am feeling uninclined to finishing my work because I feel like nothing I make will ever live up to my own expectations. And so why should I create what I want to create if it'll never be how I envision it in my head? And that is completely irrational thinking. While it seems justified when you're thinking it as an artist, if you continue to hold yourself back, you will never, ever be able to create what you want to create because you will never develop the skill sets to be able to achieve that. And somewhere along the way, and I don't know where along the way, I have started to struggle artistically in being able to feel fulfilled in what I'm making. And I don't know what pieces went wrong, where and when, and at what point I started to shift my focus, but I do know that somewhere along the way I kind of stopped creating kind of nature and plant inspired character designs as often, and I have found myself less drawn to creating what I want to create and creating without a plan in mind, and more drawn to sitting down and thinking, I have a plan, I have a goal, I am going to create this thing. And the more I sit down and the more frequently I tell myself, I'm going to make this is what I'm going to do, the more I hate the things that I create. And I keep finding myself in this cycle where I know what I want to make, I know what I love to make, But I keep telling myself that I have to do something more with my art, and I have to do something more impressive. That I need to move beyond my shtick at some point. I need to move beyond my niche interest. And I need to be something more likable, something more desirable, something more palatable to other people. And I feel like that's really weird because I feel like I'm a very neutral entity. I have a very neutral state of existence. I am very firm in my opinions and my beliefs and my moral compass. I am very firm and I am very argumentative and short-tempered, but that is not something that comes up on the internet when I'm simply creating, because my rage is quieted in moments of creative freedom. And very rarely do I create from a state of rage, because I'm very rarely put in a situation where I feel the need to be angry about something so viscerally that I need to put pen to paper right now, and I can't manage my emotions separately and create art later, if that makes sense. And I try not to be a viscerally angry person, because I feel like if you allow anger and rage to overwhelm you, you lose sight of the humanity of things. And that if you respond to anger and rage with anger and rage, you are succumbing to emotions that will cloud your judgment, right? I try to step back when I am angry and center myself in rationality and arguments and true, real defenses of my beliefs and my points, right? And I have a lot of respect for people who can be confidently angry and confident in their rage in public, in places where they can express themselves freely without restraint. But I'm a very small, very fragile person with my disability, and then I'm tiny. I'm a very small person. Being confidently angry, like, you could just crush me. Like, you could step on my toes and I'm gone. Right? Like, people like run into me in hallways and don't even realize they bumped into me. Like, I had a person I genuinely kind of like thought was like maybe kind of a friend in high school, and we were on a different campus. They're a tall woman. They're like 6'2" or something. Like, literally like bodied me with like half of her body and nailed me with her backpack with a metal water bottle, and like didn't recognize me. Like, she looked to the water fountain that she like smashed me into. Like, she bumped into that instead of me, and like didn't even acknowledge my existence. Like, she didn't look down enough to process my entire 5-foot tall person next to her. It's like, I kind of thought we knew each other. Like, you'd think that like you'd see me in your peripheral and be like, oh hey, whoa. Nah, literally nothing. I think she thought she bodied the water fountain. Like, I'm quite small and I'm very forgettable. I'm very not out there. And so I find myself restraining my creative desires, and I'm not entirely sure why. I'm not entirely sure why it is so hard for me to put everything away and simply create nowadays, and why I'm having such a hard time creating for my own enjoyment and not for what I perceive people want from me. And it's hard, and I don't really know how to combat this ideology. Ideology is not the right word. I don't know how to combat this self-doubt and this inferiority complex that I have developed for myself over the last year and a half. But I do, when I reflect, think that I can identify where it's coming from. I think I know where it started, but I don't know why I keep perpetuating it. And I think that this is perhaps a whole different topic in and of itself, discussing my Masters of Fine Arts, discussing what a fine art degree is like and how it feels and the experience of it. and what it does to talk to people whom don't see you the way you know you exist, I guess. And how that kind of alters your art and your perception of the work that you create. But as I kind of reflect and the more I think about it, the more I really think I need to put my devices away, and I need to create without things in front of me. I need to create without other artists in my peripheral vision. I need to create without a reference, which usually I don't condone, and I think I talked about this in my last video. You should have a reference. You should rely on the real world to help inform your decisions and to ground you in reality, especially if you're still learning. But there are times when it is very appropriate for you to see how you create without the restraints of something influencing you, your reference, your color palette, something like that. There are times where you should create without something there to guide you in your decision making. And it is when you do that that you are likely to find your true art style, right? When you don't have other things influencing the decisions you make and you draw freely from your own mind, you will find the natural way that you like to carry yourself artistically. And that develops further and further the more that you practice, the more that you study. And I think I'm at a point where I rely on references too aggressively for the skill set that I do have, and in that I am refraining or holding myself back from truly having my own art style the way I want to or the way that I need to. I feel confined by references, and I'm having a hard time creating without those pitfalls, I suppose you could say. Because I know when I'm looking at a real person's face, I often find myself thinking things like, I'm drawing the eyes too big. The nose is too this. The forehead's just too big. And if you look at some of my old art, like, no one had chins. And I didn't give people chins and like spaces for it just because I didn't care about them. I didn't care for them. They didn't do anything for me, and I simply liked the way it looked. I liked to draw that way. And the more I drew faces and people, and I drew people whom I respect, and musicians I loved, and people I look at, the more I was like, nah, I have to draw the chin. I don't like drawing the chin. It's boring. It takes up space that I don't care about. And I kind of bullied myself out of my own kind of natural artistic inclinations just because I felt like I wasn't being honest about the thing that I was looking at. But you do make artistic decisions, and people don't need chins. People don't need chins, okay? They don't. You know, you look at the, I was talking about this with my stepbrother the other day. You look at the freerun art style, and the gap between the side of the head and the edge of the eyeball is like really large compared to a lot of other anime art styles. And I was like, why? I was explaining, I was like, every time I've consumed content about freerun, I've been like, there's just something off here. I don't know what it is. And that offness was the expectations of a facial proportion of an anime character based on other anime art styles. Because freerun is just stereotypical anime art style enough that the gap is just like, what's happening here? You know, the art style isn't so different where you kind of put aside your previous expectations. And it took me a really long time to realize, oh, it's just the space they put between the side of the face and the eyes. And now freerun looks normal to me, you know? Now that I know that that's what was like confusing my brain, was like, why is something wrong here? I'm like, oh, everyone looks normal now. It's, once you realize what is kind of making you feel funny about an art piece, you accept it as just a fact of the art, and you can move on with your life. You know, you're like, oh, this is totally normal and fine. And it's not that the gap is unrealistic. You know, people's faces are all sorts of different shapes, sizes, kind of facial proportions, width between the eyeballs, width between the side of the face, distance from eyes to nose and things like that. You have your standard proportions that they teach you, but how you actually approach that is different. And the standard proportions are always going to deny you the ability to truly capture someone's likeness if that is something you truly desire to do. You know, you can try and capture someone's likeness, but if you rely on standardized proportions, you're never going to actually capture them. You have to care about how the face exists relative to other features, you know? This person has a huge forehead. If you just kind of tell yourself, oh, well, the hairline should be this far from the eyebrows, you're not going to capture them. They're not going to look right to people because you know they have a big forehead. Now they don't look the same. And I feel like it is all of these like little kind of things that's holding me back from just kind of creating what I feel like. And I don't entirely know where this issue is gonna go, but when I look back at my old sketchbooks, I miss my old freedom. The old freedom I felt sitting down, sketching without a reference, and just letting it happen, you know? Just letting the piece exist the way it was going to exist. And part of it I almost feel is because I don't do as many self-portraits as I used to do. I used to just, every time I wanted to do something new or I didn't know what to do, I draw a self-portrait, you know? I can mess up and totally destroy my own face without shame. I mean, it's me. I'm not disrespecting anybody. I'm not disgracing anybody by annihilating my own face and making me look like a complete idiot, you know? Like, disrespecting myself and completely drawing me ugly is fine. And as I reflect on this more and more and more and more, I feel like my goal for 2026 is to develop a creative routine that allows me to be uninhibited in my art and allows me to be uninhibited in the way that I choose to creatively express myself and the way I tell my stories and the way I draw. And my hope is that I will resolve a lot of the issues I'm feeling internally if I develop a creative routine that is not reliant on other people's approval for my own valuing of my work. And other people's approval is not this comment on the internet said my art sucks. No, it is this weird self-perceived approval that I don't even know what it means that I'm placing upon myself. It's the she's not hot enough. It's the he's too twinky, he's too skinny, I don't draw muscles correctly, I can't draw men, I'm bad at drawing this kind of ideology that I'm enforcing upon myself without even truly realizing exactly where it comes from. And it is if I recenter myself in creating simply for the sake of creating for myself, I think that I will re-find myself, but I will also re-find the spark that makes me an enjoyable artist for other people as well. Because I keep creating, and there's nothing that makes me want to stop creating. I have the drive to keep creating art, you know? It's not an art block in the sense that I feel like stopping, or I don't have the drive to create stuff. It is simply the feeling that none of my work is speaking for myself. You know, it's the feeling that my art is not capturing who I am or capturing what I feel like it needs to create or say or something like that. There is a disconnect between what I am outputting and my actual creative voice, and I'm not entirely sure where it's coming from. And it's just this weird kind of unsettling feeling. It almost feels like the start of a kind of trashy psychological thriller, you know, just feeling as if somebody else is perceiving my art in my head for me, or maybe who I am as an artist is separate from myself when I'm not creating art and is creating a disconnect. I'm not entirely sure what's happening, but I know that I need to I need to pull out old art supplies that I used to love sketching with, and I need to sketch regularly, and I need to just enjoy the process more and not allow myself to feel hindered and like my work is not appealing to the people I want to appeal to, I guess. I guess I have a perceived audience in my head, and I want those people to be proud of me. And I want them to like what I create, and I want them to see my art and be excited and feel inspired. And I'm scared of letting them down, and I'm scared of them not sticking around to see the highs and lows of my journey, because I want them to enjoy being artists with me. And I think that that's part of the problem. But I also mentioned that I think I know where this all started. I started my MFA, I graduated 2024 from undergrad. So I started my MFA summer of 2024. And there are people in my MFA whom have very different perceptions of me as an entity and what I create, and they clearly just don't know me, but they project an idea of who I am upon me. And it almost feels like a performance when I talk to them, because no matter how many times I correct them, every single instance feels like they've met my evil alternate twin I don't know exists, and they're like besties or some shit. And I'm like, I don't think we get along. I don't think we know each other. And it creates this awkward feeling where they have an idea of what I should be creating for my MFA and what I should be creating as an artist and who I should be as an artist, and is completely unaligned with who I am as a human being on a completely and utterly fundamental level. And every conversation, it feels like a broken record of, you should create this. I actually hate that, but you would be so good at it. And falling into that routine over and over and over again. And then I talk to the people in the MFA who I get along with, whom seem to respect our creative differences from each other and like the work I create, even if they think I should try something else. And I feel invigorated. I feel like I can conquer anything artistically when I talk to them. And I feel like every meeting I'm being tugged in one of three directions of who I should be, who I am, and who they want me to be. And who I should be and who they want me to be are different. Who I should be is the potential that I naturally have based on what I draw now and my trajectory, and who they want me to be is someone completely fundamentally different from who I actually am. So this teacher, right, he and I, we just don't jive. He's a nice enough dude, his art's great, all that shebang, all the respectful accolades necessary of someone his age and his professionalism. I constantly feel like he wants me to be Judy Chicago's, like, 70s persona, but in the year of 2026. And let me articulate very clearly, I don't like Judy Chicago. I don't like her work. I hate the dinner party. I literally despise that art piece. I'm so tired of it. I do not care. I don't care if you like it. I do not like the racist one. I'm done. I hate it. I also hate Woman House. I think that the exploitation of her students was very disrespectful. Her treatment of them when they said they were sick and unwell and that they couldn't make it, and the implications and the threats against them, rude. Anyway, I'm not a Judy Chicago fan. So why do I need to be Judy Chicago in 2026? She's alive and well, to my understanding, and I think she's still an artist. Judy Chicago can be Judy Chicago. I do not need to make vag plates. I don't want to. Leave me alone, right? Like, I'm so tired that my existence because I draw people and my existence because I talk about disability is reduced regularly to genitals and the surface level bare minimum disability stuff. And he never wants to look deeper, but he wants that to be my shtick exclusively. He doesn't like the plant stuff. He doesn't like the character design stuff. He does not like my himbo cowboys, which fine. I get it. You don't like himbo cowboys. You're lame, but I get it. But then to be constantly redirected to this idea that my entire career has to be advocacy about women and disabled people, and I can't do anything else, and that it is the only interesting thing about me is that I'm a disabled woman, is really annoying, and I'm so over it. I'm so over it. I don't care. I don't care. There are plenty of disabled women artists out there, and they're being disrespected regularly. There's plenty of disabled men. There's enough disabled artists out there being disrespected and treated like trash for their disability art. I do not need it to be my only personality trait. Yes, I'm disabled. Yes, it makes art hard sometimes. Yes, I like to do disability advocacy when I'm feeling bad about myself, but I don't want it to be my whole personality, okay? I want himbo cowboys. Leave me alone. I need something good in life, and I can't be entirely focusing on the downsides of my existence. I spend enough of my time on a daily basis, a life basis, being reminded of either my shortcomings because I'm disabled, medical complications because I'm disabled, this, that, and the other because I'm a woman. I experience enough of that on a daily basis that when I go to create art, I do not want all of my art to be about my life sucking. I'm so over it. Like, I have had enough medical problems in the last month and a half. I do not want to then do medical problems in art exclusively. I'm good, bro. I'm good. I'm tired. I have been trying to get in with a geneticist to test me for a condition that you can only tell through genetic testing for like 3 months, dude. And like, I kind of need to know because it'll kind of dictate my medication and like my treatment plan. I've been trying to get in with them for 3 months. I have a PPO plan and they're still refusing me. They're like, your referral's not good. I don't need a referral. It's PPO, dude. Stop being a brat. I know what I need to do. Can my insurance call you? Can we fight? Can we fist fight about this? I've been trying to get in with a geneticist for like 3 months. I have had a neck pain / ear infection that's been going between my 2 ears for 5 months. I am half deaf, if not more deaf, in one ear, depending on the day of the week, for 5 months. Have I thought about making a piece about my chronic ear pain that makes me want to smash my head into a wall? Yes. But I'm too busy being angry about it every time someone talks to me, and I can't hear them because they're on the left side of my head that day. And the fact that if I sleep on that side of my head, I experience excruciating pain so severe, I get nauseous. I don't want to make art about all of my pain, okay? I want to draw himbo cowboys. I want to draw fat titty plant people because I'm suffering enough in my daily life. I understand making art about your pain. I like making art about my pain. But if I make all of my art all about my pain, then I am never going to have art about the joys of life and the things that just bring raw passion. Like fat titty squishy men and assless chaps, okay? We need a balance. If you make all of your art about pain and suffering, you open yourselves up to continuing to live in that pain in spaces where you are supposed to be existing freely. And you're supposed to be happy and experiencing positive emotions. Now, processing your pain through art is incredibly healthy and good for you. But that should not be the only art you create, because you're opening yourselves up to have no further joy. Right? You need to balance the good and the bad. And so when I come to this person and I have something just nice and pleasant, I have a cute plant lady that I like, I'm talking about Loki and how much I love him outside of the PTSD component. I'm talking about the good things that Loki's experiencing. And then it's just diving back into the reason I'm making the comic, which is to process my PTSD and the highs and the lows. It's just, what about this traumatic experience? What about this trigger of your trauma? It's like, I just had Loki make a new best friend. It's like, I don't care about that. It's like, you care about it because I fucking told you to. I'm tired, you know? I'm tired of my life when I meet this person needing to be about my suffering and the negative aspects of my life. And I think to an extent because of that, it puts me in the headspace that I'm not good enough because I'm not suffering enough. You know, the starving artist, the tragic artist, you know, artistic suffering, which I've talked about it before, and I've written a large portion of my disability paper that I did a couple terms ago on this issue, which is the ideology that because you suffer, you make better art, and how people will falsify suffering on artists who are dead and never talked about this said suffering and use it as justification for them being better than others. And one artist who comes to mind, like just off the top of my head about this, and I cannot find any sources to say that he said, this is why my art is good, this is what drives me as an artist, this is why I make what I make, is the 1884 earthquake that struck Pablo Picasso's hometown. First and foremost, infantile amnesia is a real thing, and you don't really start to develop memories until you're 2 to 3 years old, and even then, you probably do not actually remember those experiences. You are developing falsified memories based on pictures and people telling you things. You most likely do not have any real, authentic recollection of your experience that you personally had. Rather, you have assembled memories because you feel like you should have memories based on what other people are telling you about particular experiences. Now, infantile amnesia, not really an art thing, doesn't totally impact this, but Pablo Picasso was 3 years old when the 1884 earthquake would have struck his hometown. Very likely he does not have any, I say he like he's still alive, have any like real actual memories of the experience. Most likely he remembers things that he created based on people telling him things. I read many sources writing my paper, which if you want to read it, I guess I could like publish it on my website, about disability and art education. It was just something I did for school. But the majority of my sources when talking about kind of an artistic tragedy, when they would bring up people like Pablo Picasso, they would cite memories and experiences they had when they were babies. And then their entire artistic career after that would be hingent on that one experience, that one point. Yes, you experience a trauma as a child, even if you don't actually remember it, you're likely to have long-lasting impacts, either psychologically or kind of some sort of physical reaction to certain experiences, even if you don't know what it's from. But to say that Pablo Picasso's entire artistic career was centered and based in that one singular traumatic experience that he likely doesn't remember and he didn't talk about in his adult life. He just kind of brushed it off. And to act like his dad wasn't in the art industry and wouldn't have had massive influences on his artistic development is insane. And some reports is kind of, I don't understand where the discrepancy is coming from. Some reports argue his sister was born right before the earthquake. Some say that she was born during the earthquake and that the earthquake sent the mom into labor and he witnessed his mom giving birth. I read one source in particular that was like, the reason Pablo Picasso was a woman-hating sexist was because he watched his mom give birth to his sister during the earthquake. Bro, that is not why he was sexist. His dad was a sexist cheater who didn't actually stick with any woman for particularly long. I think that is not... I think it's nurture. I think if you're raised by a woman-hating asshole, you're kind of gonna grow up to be like said person. You know, I don't think it was watching his mom give birth, which, by the way, a lot of people watched their parents give birth to their younger siblings. Like, that's not a weird thing. Like, Pablo Picasso didn't have this unique, traumatic childhood experience of watching his mom give birth. No, like most kids in the 1880s probably watched their younger siblings get born, and they did not end up being terrible people like Pablo Picasso, okay? Like, Pablo Picasso was just a bad dude who made art that I hate. I'm sorry, if you're a Picasso fan, that's cool. I hate his work. It's fugly, he's a racist, he's a sexist asshole, I don't dig him, whatever. But this is all, I'm just pulling up examples of people I don't like today. Like, I'm not pulling up artists I like for some reason. Here, I'm okay with Van Gogh's work. He's not my favorite in terms of art history. I could live without his work in my life, and I'd be completely content. A lot of people say that the reason why Van Gogh's work was so good was because of his trauma, was because of his drug addiction. And a lot of people have amounted his trauma to being why his art is good. I had a teacher in undergrad who specifically went as far as to say that the reason his art was so textural and so beautiful was because he was such a deeply disturbed man. He needed to feel the piece. She didn't cite any sources. She didn't have any justification for that. And we need to remember that Van Gogh was not popular when he was alive. He only became an icon, a moment of history after his death. So how is his art only amazing because of his trauma if it didn't matter when he was alive, actively experiencing the trauma, experiencing the torment, the tortured artist's soul? His work was only important after he died to us. So how is that anything? How is this tortured soul one of the best artists in the world only once they're dead? Why didn't we care when he was alive, when he was actively being a tortured soul? And we find this time and time again where people want to cling to a story of suffering because sob stories sell better than positive experiences. We cling to people suffering and we revel in their suffering and this kind of idea that they are surging through the darkness and they are creating something beautiful from pain, when sometimes they just were always going to be a good artist. Pablo Picasso could have probably been raised by the most stereotypical nuclear happy family on the planet, with a loving father who loved his wife, who raised the kids to be woman respecting, and he probably would have created basically the same art. He probably would have been more or less the same artist. Because while we see Pablo Picasso as the father of Cubism, he kind of did Cubism with another artist, and Pablo Picasso himself cited his own inspiration for the art style. Pablo Picasso citing Paul Cézanne as the inspiration for Cubism, and Jorge's? I think it's Jorge's Brax, but I don't know. Jorge's Brax and Pablo Picasso's work being so similar because of how intricately they were tied together as people, being deemed almost indistinguishable from who actually was the artist of which piece. People saying that their works were almost identical in nature because of how close the two men were. So to the dude who I cited in my paper who said, Pablo Picasso invented Cubism because the earthquake disjointed his entire perception of reality and he started seeing things in blocky shapes because of the jolting reality of an earthquake he experienced when he was 3. No, bro. He cited Paul Cézanne. It's not this earthquake trauma can we just take artists at their word? He said why he made it. Him and Jorge's did it together. Why do we need to apply suffering to things where the artist does not state and cite suffering? And I'm getting kind of off track, but all of this is kind of just me saying that so much of my work in the MFA is tied to my own suffering, even when I don't want it to be, and my own suffering is completely irrelevant to the topic at hand, that I feel like I am performing being an artist when I'm actually in these meetings. And to the point where I feel like I'm a different person, and I need to be a different person to actually be what they want me to be. And it's creating this disjolted discomfort where I feel like I liked my art more before going to grad school. And now that I am so deep into grad school, I'm losing sight of who I am because I feel like who I am is not what they want from me. And I think once I finish my MFA, I will do a retrospective on my art before and after, and kind of try and figure out where along the way I lost myself as a person and where it all went wrong. But at the end of the day, I graduate in December. I like my graphic novel. I like my concept. And I'm not going to let them take that from me. Most of my teachers are great. Even if we do have the awkward moments where they seem to have a different perception of me than who I am, a lot of them are really good people. I like their work. My favorite one only works in the summer, unfortunately, so I will get to talk to him in May, and I'm very excited. I feel like he's in my corner. He feels like my grandpa, and I love him. Actually, you know what? He's probably old enough to be my grandpa. Oh, that's kind of cool. I'd say he's old enough, like he's obviously old enough to be my dad, but I don't know how old my dad is because he wasn't there. So who knows? But I love him. He feels like my grandpa, or like a cool uncle. I'm excited to see him again, and he makes me feel reinvigorated about my art. He seems to be substantially more happy with my art than I am with my art. And he's a breath of fresh air that I really need a lot of the time. And I need to cling to those people in my corner a little more and kind of refine my identity and create for myself and stop creating for who I think the world needs me to be or wants me to be. Because I need to be myself first, and I need to be there for others second. Regardless of the power that I have, if I, like as an artist, if I tear myself down to create art for other people, I won't be able to create the best art, and I won't be able to be what they need. And I don't know where exactly I lost myself, but I definitely started to. And I think that this is a good thing to consider if you're considering grad school. You need to really have a firm sense of identity and be able to distinguish who you are from who you want others to be so that you don't lose sight of yourself like I did. Because you're going to encounter people in the world, in the art world, in education, whom do not agree with your alignment. And you might only have one teacher like I do, who just makes you feel off. But if you don't have that firm identity or idea of your identity, you might lose sight of yourself along the way. And that's something that I regret, and I don't even know where the regret started and where I went. But long story short, fat titty plant mommies for the win, y'all. I'm a terrible person, aren't I? I don't know what to do with this. With my flat colors for the foreground, like the character and the tree, laid down, and a gorgeous body, a beautiful face, fun hair, I am living for this sketch and line art, and I am so excited to get back to it after work today. Like, oh, I love her so much. I'm gonna go take some outside photos before I have work, in an hour so that I can design a color palette around it, see if maybe that's my thing. I'm not sure if she's going to be fleshy toned or green, but overall, I'm living for this. I'm feeling so invigorated. I'm in love. Literal goddess. And I don't even care if the rendering goes bad because I'm having so much fun. It doesn't even matter if the rendering is bad because I am having a blast. So, let me know if you want to see me rendering this in next week's video. Like, I can be I take forever to render. It's gonna take me like 2 weeks to finish this probably, just because I'm slow as all hell. So, if you want to watch me render this, you want me to talk about my rendering process, let me know in the comments down below, because we have some shebang, and I'm in love with her, and she might be my new wife. I'm not entirely sure, but she's probably my new wife. And I suppose, now that all the dead and dreary's out of the way, we're living it up. I'm still working on learning how to draw himbos for my himbo cowboys. Drawing bros is harder than I thought. I am so used to drawing, like, twinky skinny men and, like, voluptuous women that drawing, like, voluptuous men, kind of difficult. I'm working on it, but I'm just, like, not there yet. So I'm practicing. If you want to watch me study and practice drawing bros, also let me know. I can do a tutorial on how I'm, like, practicing drawing men and learning to draw men as somebody who's a femme-focused artist. But other than that, I think that we've kind of talked about all the negatives, the fun, the shebang, the nature, the love of plants, and I appreciate you listening to me yap for, like, an hour. So thank you so much for watching all the way through to the end of this video. Like this video if you like it, dislike if you dislike it, hype it if you want to have fun, get all snazzy with me. But I think we're done. Comment what you want to see next week. I might put up a poll depending on the overall reception of this lady. But other than that, you get creative, you have fun, you're a wonderful artist. If you feel bad about yourself, self-affirmation, you're a great artist. Keep up the work. Practice, because practice makes fun and snazzy, not perfection, because no one is perfect. You are doing great. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, night, wherever you are. And with all of this being said, bye-bye.